Good evening, everyone. We're going to begin in a couple minutes, and so you can get settled in here. We do have refreshments over there if you're thirsty or need something to eat. Also, just so you're aware, this year we are live streaming these presentations, and you can find them on the school Facebook page. So if you have anyone who is wanting to see this but they can't be here, you have about 90 seconds now to track down the link, send it to them, and get it all situated. All right. All right. Let's get the show on the road. Good evening. I'm Paul Jagger, one of the advisors here. This is our third night of senior presentations. It's been an intense week for all of us. It's been a little emotional at times, and we've seen some amazing presentations, and we saved our best for last here. Um, don't tell the students from the last two nights I said that. But I am really excited that you're here. Thank you for being here. You're part of the MNCS Village, and that means something. Um, I really want to say, for those of you who don't know what a senior project is, it's a huge undertaking. This is the ultimate passion project for our students. It's a 300-hour project that involves research paper that students need to write. It involves making this presentation. It involves having a community expert working with someone in the field to better their project. It involves a community piece where students give something back to a community that they care about. All of these things are stuff that we value at our school. And so that's what you're about to see tonight. And we hope that you'll stick around for all of the presentations if you can. There will be an opportunity at the end of each presentation where you can ask questions for our seniors, and we really want you to grill them. I'm looking at Henry Reinitz back there, and you have a real opportunity to put your brother's feet to the fire. And so, anyway, welcome. We're really glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Uh, this senior here to my left, to your right, is Miles Reinitz, and he's someone that I've just been honored to work with for 6 years. Um, Someone that I admire for his creativity, for his coolness, just for the way he is with people. The other day, we were just talking about life after MNCS, and he says, "I like to help people, and so I want to go into a field where I can help people." And those are the kind of humans I like being on this planet with. Um, I just want to say how special it is also to have the Reinitz family here, all of you. And it's a really special part of this community. Josh and Sally, it's just been a real pleasure to work with you for 6 years and watch this guy grow into the amazing young man that he has become and is becoming. And Miles saved his best for last. This project is a blowout, knockout project, and I'm so proud of him for pulling it off the way he pulled it off. I'm so excited for you to be able to hear all about it. And so, without further ado, from East Henderson, here's Miles Reinitz.
Uh, okay. Is this on? No? A little closer. All right. Um, so I wanted to start this project off with a small demo on how I create songs in uh, this program called Logic Pro. So the how I like to start off making a song is to record piano on this little piano pad thingy I have right here. So I'm gonna press the record button, and then so that's how I start every song off that I make. I lay down the chords, and then I go into the piano roll, which is where I can mess with the notes that I just created. So first thing I do is I um, put the or I quantize them, which means it snaps to the nearest beat. The beats are the lines that you see. Um, and then I go through and I line everything up a little bit better. Um, it's a little bit repetitive at times, but uh, it's the best way to, for me, to uh, start off a song. Uh, and then, uh, so that is the chord progression that I made. Next thing I do is I mess with the velocity of the keys. The velocity is how hard you hit the key on like a normal piano. The softer you hit the key, softer it'll be. The harder you hit, the harder it will be. So I like to choose just a very neutral velocity, around 60 to 70. Um, and then that, then I copy and paste it over. So I have what's called a 2-bar loop. Uh, it loops for 2 bars. So that sounds like this. And then we restart. Then I like to layer in more instruments uh, to make the song sound fuller. So it's not just one instrument playing. So just copy and paste all these over. And then that sounds a little bit more full. Uh, and then I get started with the drums. Uh, so I open up this thing called the pattern region. It lets me put in drums in time. So I'll just go and draw out a simple pattern. Oops. And then that will play continuously through the song as well. Same thing with the kick and the snare. Uh, Not that one, this one. So same thing, and that will just play. And then usually you add a little bit of a melody. I already recorded it for time's sake. So this is how I produce a very simple song. And then it'll play over and over again. So that's the first part of this project. Now on to what I did and why. Um, First thing I did was download Logic Pro and make and recreate my own songs. That took up the bulk of this project. Uh, Next thing was my dad took me to Signature Tone Recording Studio in Minneapolis. Um, I also made this album display and I had a community piece. So the first song that I made and I fully completed uh, was a song I made with my dad, and then former student Charles Katasik played bass. So I'm gonna go open that. Uh, so I'm not gonna do very much talking through this song. I'll talk a little bit at the start and at the end, but um, I just started this song off with chords. and then the drums. Actually, the song I started with the drums and then the chords, but and then me and my dad did about 8 takes of a solo guitar um, for the middle of the song, and then just last night Charles sent me the bass, uh, so I'll play that now. And the guitar solo comes in. And at this point in the song, it starts to slowly fade out towards the end. So yeah, so for this song, like I said, me and my dad did 8 takes of a guitar solo, and throughout all those 8 takes, I went through all of them, and I picked out parts that I like, and I discarded parts that I didn't, and I made the whole little riff that you heard. And then for Charles's part, I kind of just sent him the song, and I trusted him for to make me a bass line, and he made me two, and I chose this one, and I think it sounds really cool. So back to slideshow. Um, Signature tone recording. My dad is currently making an album there, and he told me to come along and meet the owner. His name is Adam Tucker. Uh, he's really cool. He knows a lot about music and music production. So he was a good choice for my community expert. So he taught me some stuff, and he told me with starting out with music, you just got to experiment, try to make a song per day. Um, if it sucks, it sucks. If it's good, it's good. Uh, just learn. And yeah, so this is what part of the inside of his studio looks like. Um, it's a nice vibe. It's just fun to be in there. Um, he has couches, and just watching him work is really cool. And then he also has this big room where a whole band can go and he can record a whole band, which is pretty cool. Uh, so on to my community piece. For this project, I organized to have a group of seventh graders come and learn music production from me. Uh, so to start out the day, I had planned out to uh, teach them how to use the website. It's called Soundtrap. It's free. Anybody can use it. It's kind of like Logic Pro, but not with all the bells and whistles that Logic comes with. But it was a good experience. They learned, and then for the second part of the day, they made their own songs, and at the end, they got to share it with each other. So that was pretty cool. So on my album display, so first thing that me and my dad did to start this project was plan it out on paper. We measured the albums, got the dimensions right. Then we went to Menards to get a piece of plywood, and then a craft store to get this felt and then an adhesive. So the next day we cut the plywood to length and then sprayed the adhesive over it and draped the felt on, and then I took like a rolling pin and rolled it out to eliminate any air bubbles and to make it flat. Then we got started on the frame. The frame is made out of oak that we found in the shop. So we cut it to size and built up the frame, just here on the right. We also cut these grooves in. If you can see, that's where we put the felt and the plywood together. Then we glued it up, and then we put some screws in the side uh, to make it a bit more strong. And then to make it even more strong, we put that middle divider down there, just to make it stronger, I guess. And then we sanded the whole thing. And then I actually took a blowtorch and blowtorched the frame to burn the grain so it would match the black background better. And I think it came out really cool. There's a couple hot spots where I took it for a bit too long, but that's fine. And then to secure the albums, we have these little mirror clips. These top ones can be turned so I can take the album out and play it, or switch it out with something that I want to um, just display a different album, I guess. Uh, so on to my future plans after high school. Uh, right after high school, my summer's packed with a bunch of traveling. We're going to California, Colorado, and Wyoming. Also have my birthday. So a busy start to the summer. But after all of that, I would like to uh, really lock in and get a full-time job. I work right now in customer service, and I like that. I like helping people. So maybe a job in customer service like I have now, or possibly like an old folks home, uh, something like that. And then with a full-time job, I want to move out, uh, preferably to Mankato. It's where all my friends are. Uh, it's not too big of a city, uh, not too much traffic, which I don't like. But everything I need is there. Also, uh, I'm really considering doing the music production program at Minnesota State University in Mankato. They have a very great program. A recent Grammy winner just or graduated from uh, Minnesota State, so clearly their program is very good and teaches. So with this project, uh, in Logic Pro, I recreated a bunch of songs. And my best recreation is Timeless by The Weeknd and Playboi Carti, produced by Mike Dean and Pharrell Williams. Um, they are all incredible music artists, and I look up to them, especially like Mike Dean for the synths he uses. It's pretty crazy. Um, so to start off this remake, I started with the intro, obviously. And during the production phase of this, I realized that the bass didn't sound like it did in the actual song. In my song, the bass kind of just hit and it just disappeared. But in the actual song, it's kind of like it kind of pulses in and out. So I'm gonna play this. I am gonna dim the sound a little bit to tell you what's gonna happen in the song. So. So here the main beat comes in with the main melodies, and then coming up is a counter melody, and then more sounds come in to kind of fill it out. And then here a choir will come in, And then for the middle of the song, uh, the intro starts again. The main beat starts again. And then the outro synth comes in, and I'll just let that play. And then it ends on that high note. So, uh, yeah, like I said, I really like Mike Dean and Pharrell Williams' producing style with the synths and the choirs and just kind of the sounds that fill out the track. Um, so I don't know, not much more to say about that. So reflecting on this project, over my 12 years at MNCS, this is my favorite project I've done by a long shot. Uh, Music over the last while has kind of been a big part of my life. I really like music. I've been going to a lot of concerts, including The Weeknd, Post Malone, uh, going to one this summer. Uh, so it was kind of cool to learn how uh, music is made. And hopefully with MSU, I can take this project further than just high school. So yeah, on to my thank yous. Senior team, they helped me kind of plan out this project a little bit, guided me, helped me with my presentation that I didn't practice until this week. Oops. Um, Charles Katasic for helping me with that bass line. That was really cool, and I think it kind of finished the song. Then Adam, as my community expert, letting me come to the studio with my dad, watch him work, have him teach me some stuff. My parents, they've helped me with countless projects throughout uh, all my time at MNCS. So I thank them a lot. And then MNCS staff like Paul, Diane, Angelina, Eric Olsen, they all have helped me so much throughout my uh, MNCS career, especially Paul. I would not have wanted to go through high school without you as my advisor. So, yeah, questions? Um, yeah, so there's a app or a website on Google, and it splits the song into individual instruments. So I kind of listened to that, and then I went to Logic Pro and went through thousands of sounds that they have, trying to find the one that fits best. Um, and then there were a couple times where I did need to look up what the actual chord progression was, but yeah, so kind of just off sound. Hmm. Not at all. I just kind of play it and see what sounds good. Um, but yeah, there was a good amount of times where I had to look up what the actual chords were and then play it out. But yeah. Yeah. If I did want to actually sing, I could, but I'm not gonna sing. But yeah, Logic Pro does everything. there are different programs for like different aspects of music. Like FL Studio is better for rap and trap beats, uh, as Logic Pro is kind of a middle ground for everything. So, um, how long everything took? I didn't expect it to be super quick, but um, there was a lot of times where I was just endlessly going through sounds in Logic Pro. Sam, right now I'm at like 270-ish. Um, I don't know. Maybe just making songs or like even like doing what Adam did and open up a studio and be a sound engineer. That I feel like that would be pretty cool. Paul. Um, I don't know, any time of day. I kind of found myself in bed at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. with my laptop, working. That happened a lot. I don't know, anytime. And then I don't know, I listen to music more and I like kind of pinpoint a lot more sounds. Like in Timeless, I wasn't able to do this one sound you can barely hear at the start of the song. There's bongos playing. You need like a condensed version or a bigger version of the song to actually hear them. But I don't know. I just listen with more intent and try to find sounds that are hard to hear. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So I started with a couple with YouTube videos. Uh, but honestly, just doing the remakes. I have like 10 of them that I've made throughout the project, but that kind of taught me a lot about it and just all the time spent kind of, I just got a hang for it. Um, the probably like the pattern region stuff. It makes my life so much easier, so I don't have to actually go into the piano roll and do every single little kick or snare that I want. And I don't know. I discovered a lot more like effects, um, like there's like echo to make it echo, or just a lot of effects that I found at the end of that. I wish I would have known sooner. Yeah, definitely. Learning the piano was originally a part of this project, but I kind of realized I could scrape by without really knowing how to play the piano. But uh, if I am going to pursue this as a career, definitely learning piano as a base, and learning more about music theory is, yeah, definitely something I should have done. Sam, I can play a lot of songs. So, um, I don't know, that was kind of it. Just liking music, and I just wanted to know more. So, Evelyn, um, probably like the end of the song, finishing a song and going back and listening to it. Um, was pretty cool. And also, I really liked doing the album display. Uh, I have not hung it up on my wall yet, but I want to soon. We're gonna hang it like soon. Yeah.
Yeah, take a little break, have some lemonade, some cupcakes. We got to kind of reset here, but we'll try to get going in about 2, 3 minutes with our next presenter.
Test, 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 test. Perfect. Hey, folks, we're about to start in about another minute, so make your way back if you're going to sit back down. Otherwise, I'll give it a little bit before I start talking. Lainey. Alrighty, folks. We're all situated now. My name is Dakota Palmer. If you haven't met me, now you have. I've had the privilege of being Lainey's advisor 2 of the 2 years that I've been an advisor here. So pretty good success rate for me, I would say. Um, I've actually known Lainey all 3 years that I've been here, and it all started on a Friday. A Friday that was based off of a video game, Five Nights at Freddy's. So if you ever think that there's a Friday that's really silly, you never know what it might lead to because it has led to the last 2 years of our relationship. So go to those Fridays that you're like, this is just weird. Trust the process, it'll work. Me and Lainey have gone through a lot these last 2 years. We finalized both of their sophomore and junior projects last year, and now we're on the senior one. It's been really great to be your advisor these last 2 years. I know you're going to do good stuff in this world, and you're just going to do great. Without further ado, Lainey.
Working? Okay. Thank you. Um, and he was the one who made the Friday, not me. Um, before we start, I want to talk about this quote a little bit and what it means to me. This is my favorite band. It's from 21 Pilots, and it's from one of their songs called Oldie Station. The song is about suicide and pushing on through when things get really hard. And that leads to my project. So, going into my project a little bit, I do just want to preference by saying there is a little bit of talk of suicide and self harm. If that makes you uncomfortable, feel free to step out. Um, it won't hurt my feelings any. But a quick overview what motivated me to do this project, what is the Lainey Project, why this project is so important to me, my future, and my thank yous, as well as my words of reflection. Let's go into my motivations. So, 1 in 4 teenagers are addicted to self harm. 1 in 5 attempt suicide every year. In the last few years, from 2000 to 2018, suicide has spiked up at a 37% rate as one of the highest killers for teenagers. You're asking why are these things important to me? Because these percentages are my story. They lead to the Lainey Project. Throughout my life, I have dealt with an over 8-year addiction to self-harm, and the last few years, I was hospitalized twice. Through my battle, and with all my strength, I made this project to help others, to prove that they're strong enough too, and they can do anything, despite how hard it is. So let's talk about it. What is the Lainey Project? I'll tell you a little bit about what went into it. So I decided to make a mental health podcast. I created it completely from scratch, my own website, my own videos, scripts, etc. And we'll go a little bit into it. So, like I said before, I built my own website from scratch. I used a website called Card, something I'm familiar with, but it's basic coding. I used a few templates I found here and there, but I created like a homepage, a video album, and then a blog. And at the end, if you want to check it out, there'll be a QR code you can see. So, going into making the videos for my podcast, originally I wanted to do a video style, I'm sitting outside and we're having a casual conversation type video. I learned a little bit later on that just wasn't something I was quite comfortable with, so I opted for a different approach. I used scripts and I used videos of me drawing because art has been something I've carried with me my entire life. So, let's talk about a few of my scripts. I picked 4 different topics to talk about. The first one we'll talk about is success. In this video, I talk about how success isn't just limited to a job or school or how you present yourself, but rather how hard you work. Success isn't about a textbook or step by step. Success is whatever you make it out to be because at its core, it's about your purpose. That is what success is to me. That is what I execute in these videos for other teenagers who feel like they aren't doing good enough. And then we talk about the concept of growing up, something that I know a lot of teenagers, including myself, struggle with. There's this urge to grow up really fast, and then you hit your senior year and you want to turn it all back really fast because you don't know what you're doing. In this, I talk about how everything will be okay. As scary as it is, it'll be okay. And then we talk about insecurity. This was my first script. It was the first one I sat down and wrote. I talked a lot about my personal experience with being insecure, growing up being picked on or bullied, and talking about how these insecurities still follow you, but they're easy to work with and grow through. And then the last one is grief, but I'm saving that because you'll see one of the videos I made for you today. So we'll go on to my community piece. Going into this project, I was told I really didn't need one. This website I'm leaving behind for the next generation of students or any teenager or someone who just needs it. The whole website in itself was my community piece. I still felt it was important to pass a different message on to a group of students who I knew needed the help, which are the 7th graders. They're stuck in that tiny room over there, and they don't have a lot of socialization. So what I did, what I thought would be a great exercise for them, is teaching them how to be a high schooler. I spent 2 days with them, stressing them out about standards and projects and how we do things when you get to the high school. I'll show you a little bit about what I really did. This is like a step-by-step guide of what I did with them. I taught them how to do math independently, how to start projects, our standard projects, and especially capstones. I really, really, really stressed capstones and how important they are to meet your hour quota. The first 2 Fridays, they were nice. A rambunctious group of kids, but I believe in all of them, and I think a lot of them learned a lot more than they would have if they didn't have this help before. So from there, I will show you my little video on grief. So just enjoy it. Oh, 1 second. The audio is not picking up well, but through these videos, it's a bunch of photos of me and my friends from the very beginning of being here at MNCS. Some really silly stuff, but I talk about growing up, and I talk about how scary it is to leave high school, and how scary it is to go on to something different and new, and how you don't really know what's going to happen next. And leaving high school is similar to grieving. You're scared of the unknown, and you don't know what's going to happen. But through everything, grief is all about time. It's what you spend and how long you spend on it, and that's what matters. So all of these videos and photos are from when I was like 2 to now, with the people that I care about most and how they've impacted me, and how I'll grieve them when I have to leave in a month. Ryan falls out of his chair a lot. I don't know if anyone can tell. The point of the photos and the videos is to show that though I have to grieve these things and it's really hard, it means I get to hold the special memory with me too. When you walk out a door, you don't expect it to be your last time, even when you're told it's your last time. So holding on to things like this are what are most important to me. It's another reason why I did the project. To show that though you lose the memories, they don't go away. And that's what grieving is about. So through that, I'll go on to my challenges a little bit. Um, try to calm down the waterworks. With this project, from the get go, last year I wanted to do something based around mental health. Like I talked about before, it's something I've always struggled with and something that I was strong enough to see through. Um, and obviously, base my entire senior year around. That's how important it is to me. Um, the challenges with this project, though, was feeling comfortable on camera. Like I said before, the few videos that I were supposed to have um, were supposed to be recorded of me just talking. It wasn't something I was exactly comfortable with. I couldn't get my words out correctly. And without a script, it made it a lot harder because I ramble a lot. That goes into writing scripts and understanding what goes into a podcast. I did this completely on my own, podcast from scratch. I watched like a podcast once and I was like, yeah, I'll do this. It seems easy. It was not that easy. There's a lot of time that goes into podcasts, and I learned that the hard way. I wanted like 20 plus videos, and I ended up with a good 4. My 2 biggest ones was probably getting burnt out and feeling like my project isn't at its highest potential. I am a person that always wants more after I get the goal, and I felt that I wasn't executing my message good enough. Um, I turned this around by telling people outside of school. I told um, friends and friends of friends and people who could use the link anyhow they could, um, trying to spread the message out there better that this project isn't for me, it's for you. And I felt that that made me feel a little bit more secure in what I was trying to do. So, successes. I take my failures and turn them into successes. So, spreading my message, I think it was one of the best things I could have done. I don't regret doing this at all. I matured a lot through this project too. When I started the project, I had no job. I would come home every day and just lay in my bed, and now I own a store and I have a whole team and I work full time. So I feel like this project taught me a lot about maturing. It also showed my progress, and it shows if you put your mind to it, you really can do it. And then, 2, understanding what goes into a podcast. Like I said before, understanding better that if I ever did want to do this again, I would do it a little bit differently. So, future goals. Eventually, I plan to move down to Oklahoma and attend OSU. I'm going to go study in social work. My end goal is to be a psychotherapist. To help people is my forever goal, and it's always been my goal. But for now, I'm going to work full time, continuing what I'm doing, move out of my parents' house eventually, and just show that independence before I commit to something as big as college. So, this is the QR code. If you want to check it out, go right ahead. The website isn't 100% fully done yet. There is videos on there and it's put together, but it's still something I'm working on. I'm going to tab over the other slide, but it has the same QR code too. Thank yous. My first thank you goes to senior team. I'm going to be honest, I really didn't need you guys this year, but I appreciate all the help you had. Um, it was nice being able to have our conversations and just tell you what I'm up to. Especially you, Paul. You helped out a lot. To my friends, especially Logan, Indigo, and Savvy. Without you guys, I wouldn't know where I'd be. Especially you, Indy. I've known you for like 6 years. They've been my rock and my pillar this entire time. And I know if I ever needed them, they're just a call away. Dakota, I haven't needed you this year like you said I wouldn't. And that's a good thing. Last year, I would depend on Dakota a lot for help. And when he became my advisor, he told me one thing. He said, "It's gonna be hard, but you can do it." And I did. And I excelled at it. I'm pretty awesome for it. And that's all with the help of him. Genuinely, without him, I don't know where I'd be if I'd be doing this project and standing in front of you today. And then my biggest thank you goes to me. One, because I deserve it. And two, I'm strong enough to stand here today and tell you about my biggest struggles, make a project out of it, and use those struggles to help other students. All right, any questions? Yes. Yeah, it's a great question. Um, there's a term that they use in psychology called the wounded warrior. It's someone who uses their own experiences to help people further. Um, this project really cemented that for me. It really set in that I want to do everything I can to help someone else, even in my times of worst. Um, this was really healing for me. Being able to look back at all the progress, especially the things that are hard to talk about, um, and say with confidence that not only am I clean for over a year, I am also happy, healthy, and able to stand here and tell you about my biggest accomplishments. Um, it means a lot to me to be able to do this project and work as hard as I did at it. So I think it impacted my mental health a ton. Yes. Thank you. Ooh. Um, so right now I have just the four. Something I kind of wanted to dive into a little bit more was about like relationships, teenage relationships, because they can be pretty heavy. I generally take topics that are like indulged in my teenage mind, like drama or little things that don't really matter very much, and make a topic out of it because it's relatable, and a lot of us can go, "Yeah, I did that once." Um, so for the future, I'm not too sure right now, um, but there will be something someday. Yes. Yeah. Um, I think being able to have the strength to look at this and carry that with me is something I'd like to take in the future. It's something I like to bring to others that it's like I did it and you can too. Um, but yes, it is a skill I would love to take with me into the future. Okay.
Again, take a little break here, grab some lemonade. Again, this is live streaming. If you want to tell people that aren't couldn't make it, the link is on our Facebook, and it goes to our YouTube channel. But we'll get going here in just a few more minutes as we finish setting up.
Better. Can't do better than the best.
Test 1 2.
Gotta get a little closer.
Test 1 2 1 2. There we go.
All right, folks, we're gonna get going in a just a minute here.
I think the blade, yeah. There. Oh well. I talk about it anyway.
All right, we're gonna get going. For those of you that don't know, my name is Nick. I'm an advisor here. Had the privilege of having Noah in my advisory this year. Kind of reflecting back, just trying to think of something to sum up Noah's year here, and I think the word that kept coming to my mind was just success. When I look at that sailboat on the wall up here, I know that's the goal for our students is that they get to the point where they're putting their own sail up, they're ready to go out into the world and control their own destiny. And sometimes when you're, whether you're a student, staff member, parents, um, you can come in and grind out a lot of days trying to do that and feel like you're not making any progress. And so, really, this year has been like a success lap for Noah. This is first year in my advisory. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but really, he came in on day one. He showed me his plan. I kind of validated with it, made sure all the numbers added up to the 70 credits he needed to graduate it, and that's really all I've had to do. So it's been wonderful. He's just been in control of his own destiny, has been working his own plan successfully, communicating with everybody, came up with his own project, successfully navigated some PSEO, which he'll tell you about. And so really just a success for Noah, success for everybody that's involved with Noah. And it's been a privilege getting to work with him. One thing I do want to mention, Noah, like a handful of our seniors this year, it's kind of the last in the long line of many children that we've had here. So it's sad we're losing not only Noah, but we're kind of, losing the Mennies, a part of our community. They've been here a long time, and we appreciate that you guys have put your trust in us to work with your kids. So they've all been great. So without further ado, Noah Menne.
Well, first I'll say success is quite a big word I use here. I think it's more of flying by the seat of my pants, and things have been working properly while doing that. But overall, it has been a great year full of many different things that I've done, many different words said, and a lot of hounding children to get their work done. But enough about the lit wins. Time for me. So, first, I'll start off by saying this was very complicated for me. Literally flew into this completely blind. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I created 3 classifications for myself with these engines. Is it broken? Do I just need to look at things and adjust things to make things run again? Really broken where I need to start tearing things apart, or really, really broken where I need to pull a ship of Theseus and replace every part that I can to make it work again. So, as I said, hello, my name is Noah Menne, and this is my project on small engine repair. In that bottom corner there, you can see kind of the shop bay of CNS Supply in Mankato. That is kind of what a professional shop looks like with doing this. That is their entire to-do bay when I was there. So here's kind of the overview. So it's the what, the why, what were my first steps doing this, the engines that I was working on for this project, some of the challenges, what my community piece was, my community expert, and a lot of the other general things that you see. So the what is small engines. Now, what classifies as a small engine really was anything I could get my hands on that wasn't a full-sized car engine. I went from mowers and snowblowers to chainsaws. I didn't work on a weed whacker. Couldn't find one cheap enough. And the goal was to fix them, or at least try. And try I did, because some of these like to be a very big pain to fix. So the why did I even do this? I wanted to work with my hands, and it was a major interest of mine. I knew I wanted to do something completely physical and didn't want to get stuck behind a desk working on something boring. And this was a much more complex mechanical thing for me, and this was definitely a challenge to work on because I hadn't really done much mechanics. So with that picture there, it gets messy. It gets messy very fast. I know my dad told me to clean my workbench, or what was my workbench, at least twice, if not 3 times. Only once did that get done, because otherwise I could not find anything. But this was when I was working on the first mower that I picked up, and it was certainly a wild ride to work on that. So the first steps, I had to figure out what I was even planning to do. I mean, I came in at the start of the year telling Nick I want to do small engine repair as my senior project, but I don't know how to start that or where to even go with the planning. And Nick was a great help in helping me sit down and go, here's a couple things where you could start out with and just fly from there. And then I had to figure out who am I contacting for this? Because believe it or not, there's not a lot of people who still do small engines anymore. It's mostly just become the culture of the United States where it is just the buy and throw out of don't fix it, just buy a new one, buy the better version. And so I don't know a ton of people who are working on small engines. So that leads into like finding where do I even find these? So I created a Facebook account, which, by the way, 10 out of 10 would not recommend. There's a lot of weirdos on there. But I had to find engines somehow. And aside from driving around Mankato to find them, that's how I found them, is through Facebook Marketplace. And then I had to figure out what can I do for a community piece for something that's a very individual thing. How can I give back to the community of MNCS in my way? And that was a very interesting thing to figure out. But as you can see, my workbench, so to speak, wasn't really a workbench. It was a 8x4, I believe, sheet of OSB slapped onto two sawhorses. I had to squat that onto the two sawhorses, and I will not be doing that again. That hurt. First engine I worked with was an engine that I've seen in the shop many, many, many times. And I didn't really know what it was doing in the shop at all. Oh, great, the laser pointer's dead. But I didn't know what it was doing in there, so I decided I'm just going to go and take this off the shelf. And that I did. I walked in there one day and I told Jake, hey, I'm taking this off the shelf, and I'm probably going to figure out how to rip this thing apart every which way I can. And that I did. I took it home on the bus, and I got the most hours out of any engine into this one. I'm sitting at 37 hours on this engine alone, and this is how I taught myself the basics of engine work. I taught myself parts. I taught myself how do I put a piston back in when I accidentally pull it out. And then I time-lapsed the teardown. This was originally supposed to be the community piece, was I was going to create a guide for past or future students who wanted to work on these engines. That didn't go well. I figured out that there was a ton of more sitting there figuring out and putzing with the lights, the GoPro, and all these other things. So I ended up getting a tripod from Nick, set up my phone up on a ladder with a Ryobi battery, and just put my phone on time-lapse mode and time-lapse the teardown. The original teardown video is about 2.5 minutes time-lapsed. After editing it to take out all of the confusion of me standing around looking at the directions sheet, wondering, what am I doing? It ended up being 30 seconds. So there were a lot of hours in the garage spent looking at this sheet, going, who's on crack, why? And then I made a huge mistake. I was trying to rebolt the flywheel back onto the camshaft and ended up not doing it correctly, and I shredded the threading on the camshaft. And because I needed to get the engine back in one piece and not four, I had to completely rethread it by hand using files smaller than my pinky finger was. And that took literally 8 hours of sitting there with the crook, with the end of the camshaft in the crook of my arm and just filing the threads away and away and away until I could get it to fit back on. That was not fun, and I very much learned how not to shred threads. So then there was this chainsaw. So I attempted to fix this because I got told, hey, it runs rough and we don't know what's wrong with it. I opened this up to find it absolutely caked with dirt, mud, sand, and wood chips, blocking just about every mechanical part in there. It got to be extremely frustrating because between all of the cleaning that I was doing of it and trying to fit small pieces with big fingers into very, very tight spaces, it wasn't going well. And then I figured out I don't have the right parts because I needed to do a full carburetor replacement on the engine block. And it came with a carburetor replacement. The carburetor fit fine. The fuel line did not. So, after about 6 hours of trying different methods to try and put the fuel line through this small hole, I finally took it down to the techs at CNS and I said, what's going on here? And I'm very grateful for them not charging me anything for literally helping me figure out why the fuel line wouldn't go through. And turns out, whoever the dealer was of this carburetor for this chainsaw doesn't have the right fuel line sizing. And that makes one heck of a difference to have the proper fuel line sizing to thread it through. And I did not have fun with this chainsaw at all. I ended up snapping a screwdriver because I was trying to force the incorrect fuel line through that hole. It didn't go well. Then there was this first Craftsman mower, this one right here. This one didn't take much the first go around, but now it's decided it wants to leak from the carburetor seal. And I'm not happy about that, but it does run okay. Aside from the major leak that comes from the carburetor when I run it for more than a minute at a time, it runs fine. I did the blade sharpening myself, and it only took about 20 hours to work on because this was also my first mower to work on by myself. I didn't have a guide, I didn't have any clue really what to check. And that's where my dad came in. He told me, hey, check these couple things. And when I did my own research, that was also the kind of couple things. And it was not fun to work on because I had to completely redo like my thought process of how do I work on an engine? Because I originally unmounted the engine and slapped it onto my workbench. And then I got the carburetor off and got it cleaned and put it all back together. And then I discovered, wait, how do I rebolt this to the mower deck? So as you can see in that bottom corner, this didn't go exactly to plan. I had to use both jack stands and 2x4s with a jack to push it up into the air so that I could slide under it and remount the engine. Because manufacturers like to mount your mower engine from the underside. Why they do this, I don't know, and I don't like them for that. But overall, it was a very fun one to work on. It was very enjoyable to teach myself the basics of a mower with. I mean, we picked it up on the side of the road in like October, I think, and I didn't even get around to it till February because I got really busy really fast. And then there's the Toro mower. The hunk of junk sitting down in the corner because I don't like it and it deserves to be in the corner of shame. This is from 1990. This is nearly 40 years old, and this took way more work. This took way more work than I thought it was going to take. And I discovered the hard way. I can't get new parts for it unless I go and directly talk to the manufacturer themselves. And the manufacturer doesn't want to make these parts, so they'll charge you out the butt. They quoted me $130 for a new carburetor, when I can go to Walmart and get one for that for probably $30, if not less. And so I discovered, you know, maybe it's not worth it because then I knew the fuel line had a leak as well. And it was also taking so much time to work on that I wasn't getting around to other things that needed to have gotten done in that timing. But I was ripping things off this one. Oh, there's the laser pointer. But I was ripping things off it a lot. And when I was putting it back together, I noticed a lot of things didn't fit correctly. And I think somebody else had done some work before me. And I declared it donezo with the help of my dad because there's supposed to be a long knock on your fuel line, on your fuel tank to hold your fuel line in place, and that did not exist. Crashed into Electric Boogaloo. Um, that's the one sitting over on the other side of the stage there. This was another one that I picked up for $20 off Facebook Marketplace. The guy didn't know what was wrong with it aside from he knew the carb needed to be cleaned and he knew the wheel needs to be replaced. And I ended up replacing the spark plug on it and got it running again with the help of starting fluid, which tells me, hey, the carburetor still needs to be cleaned because it can't get air intake through it. And the broken wheel, I also need to figure that out because the wheel size is a very different size from what you see on a lot of current mowers, especially with how big the rear wheels are. Those are 13.5-inch wheels, if I remember correctly. And Amazon wants $60 for one. So I'm going to figure out how do I make a 12-inch wheel from Ace Hardware that costs like $20 fit on there. But I brought it here and it was running fine. And the other day I was running it to make sure everything was fine for tonight. And I discovered things are knocking in the engine. And it runs very rough and it jitters like crazy. And I'm not happy about that because it was running fine. And I don't know what broke again. Then there was the first dirt bike that I worked on. As I said, small engine to me meant anything that I could get my hands on that wasn't a full size car engine. I worked with it on another student here at MNCS named Willem. He needed the carburetor replaced and the fuel stop replaced, but he didn't know the first thing about that. And he asked me to help him out with it. And I discovered the very hard way that this did not go well. Dirt bike frames are very, very small and they're very narrow. And so I had to figure out how do I work in a very narrow spacing. It didn't go well, and I crushed my hands a lot. And then, after about 7 hours to get the carburetor replaced because of taking so many things apart to get access to the carburetor, we had replaced the fuel stop and we kickstarted it to try and figure out how to tune the carburetor to get a better idle on it. And it sprang a leak directly from the new fuel stop all over concrete. And at that point, it was like 11:30 at night, and we decided to call it a night. And I haven't been back to work on it since, and he hasn't really cared to fix it since. And then there was this scrap bike. Brody, he presented last night. I've known him for a while. He asked me, hey, we're going to go look at some motorcycles from a scrapyard. And neither him nor his dad really knew what they were looking for an engine. I mean, it was more of the basics of does the engine look fine? Does it look like it's been tampered with? Does it look like it's been screwed with? And I went along with him up to the place in Jordan and we took it out of a mostly intact bike. The bike's missing a lot. The bike was missing a lot of the electrical pieces and the throttle we had to figure out how to get it out of. And it took about 3.5 hours to get it fully out because, you don't want your engine coming loose very easily, but you don't need to stack literally everything else on top of your engine. That's what manufacturers like to do, and I don't like it because it creates much more work for those of us who are doing the mechanics. And we don't know if it runs yet. We still have to do a lot more fixing up of it and cleaning on it to see if it even runs. But this was the best engine that we found after almost 45 minutes of looking. A lot of the other engines had broken spark plugs, or some of them didn't even have pistons in them. One of them, the entire engine block was cracked down the middle, and Brody was looking at that one, really interested, and I said, "Hey, do you want to pay for an engine? If so, go buy a new one instead of buying that." Then there was this Lonson engine that came off of a snowblower somewhere. I started working on it to try and get it running again, and it didn't go well. I mean, this was one of the first ones that I was working on. Didn't really know what to do with it, and started taking things off it and tried cleaning out the gas tank using a sand and water method that my community expert taught me, except I forgot to take out the gas cap when doing that because I forgot that I had put sand and water in and not gas. And so the threads of the gas cap got stuck in there, and I had to forcefully pry it out. And it broke the gas tank. And as much as I've looked for a replacement for it for the school, I can't get one. It doesn't exist anymore because a lot of the ones you see now go in at an angle, whereas this one goes straight through for the holes. And all of the other ones online are all angled, and you can't exactly fit an angle through a straight. Doesn't work properly. Then I worked with Rich Haas. He's an older guy here in Henderson who I got connected with through Nick. And he definitely helped me get started on small engines and where to start diagnosing things at. In total, I worked on 4 snowblowers and a big 2-cylinder engine with him, and it was about 6 hours total. A huge thank you goes to him for letting me even come into his shop, which is like a mechanic's territory. Huge thank you goes to him for also helping me get started and do whatever I wanted with the snowblowers to figure out how do I get these things running. So then my community piece was kind of 2 parts, was helping Brody figure out the bike and what do I tear out and what not to tear out. And then I taught kids. I'm not a teacher. I don't want to be a teacher. And it did go better than expected, but there were still quite a few hiccups of these kids kept trying to pull out more and more sockets than was necessary, and I kept having to put more and more sockets back because they kept grabbing wrong sizes, or they'd try and grab 12-point sockets for a 6-point bolt. And I told them no. And a lot of them got frustrated with getting told no for the first time in their lives, it seems. There were definitely some challenges. I had to figure out, how do I do this? How do I do this in the shop via my own method and not somebody else's teaching like template? And that was definitely a big challenge for me. I like using templates. I like them a lot because they make more sense to me than trying to freeball everything. But there was none for this. There was the script manual for how to do the teardown, but that doesn't tell you what parts what, where it goes where. It's literally just a glorified parts list. Then the challenges. I had to do PSEO. I've been doing PSEO for the whole year. In fall, I did 3 courses, which were each 3-credit courses, and that was a lot. There were some weeks where I was absolutely swamped with PSEO work between the 3 of my classes, and I had to figure out, okay, how do I manage my time? And that was a huge part of this, was learning how do I manage my time for this? Because I was literally swamped about, I'd say, 8 out of the 10 weeks for that semester that I was here. I was swamped. There were some weeks where I did not get a chance to even work on my senior project until I got home because I had been spending the entire day on PSEO work. And then this spring, I have also been doing PSEO. I've been doing the CMAE courses at South Central, and those have been interesting. It's interesting to go from completely asynchronous online to with no teacher interaction, no class interaction at all, to full synchronous in person. It's definitely a turnaround, but I loved it. I loved my professor. I loved the guys I was in there with. and it was overall a great time. Then I had to figure out, how do I find a community expert for this? My first option was trying a former student here who his senior project was also small engines. His name was Braden Sandborg, and I tried reaching out to him. I got a no from him. He lives out of state now. And then he referred me to Rich, which was great. Then I had to find parts for some of these. I still am trying to find parts because they're not super easy to come by, but they're not rare either. You just have to look in the right places and do the right things at the right time. Finding engines sucked. I mean, aside from Facebook Marketplace or just driving around Mankato, there's not much for engines and finding them. I mean, we got lucky with that one, and that one just sitting on the curb. But otherwise, I would not have known where to even start finding them. And then again, with the finding engines, getting responses from people is also very, very hard. I messaged a guy about a weed whacker and leaf blower combo that he had for $20. And I figured, hey, might as well. I never got a response in 2 weeks, and then he said, oh, never mind, it's been sold. Then my research paper, this was on the Pentagon Papers. Originally, I wanted to do it on the, like, Vietnam War as a whole, and Nick told me, hey, here's a better idea. How about we narrow this down? I could have wrote much more. There's so many pages of this because it's basically an entire classification of the Vietnam War era as a whole in every little thing the US government was doing. There's over 750 pages of documented evidence of what was going on behind the scenes that the general public did not know at that time. And there's a lot in there, but the most notable is the US military knew what was going on in Laos. They knew that they were completely irreparably damaging the entire country of Laos. If I remember correctly, the statistic is 97% of Laos was bombed. And the average bomb was dropped every 45 seconds in Laos during that time of the Laos bombing campaign. And Laos, as a country, still struggles with fertile soil to this day. So there's a ton of things to write on in there. I spent between 20 and 30 hours total writing, organizing, and figuring out what do I even want to write. And I decided to move on because I needed to do something that wasn't going to trap me at my desk. Then I did PSEO. I touched on this a little bit before, but in the fall I did Gen Eds, and this finished out my standards completely and got me way ahead of where I needed to be at the time. And I've done both online and in person, and I can confirm in person is much better. You are there, you are physically there, and you have more of an environment to learn in, so to speak. And it was definitely a lot different from high school. I mean, my professor swears like a sailor, but that's just kind of college in a nutshell. Is you're all adults, you're all expected to behave like adults, and they don't really care if you show up or not because it's your money that's paid, not theirs. And then in this spring, I've been doing the certified production technology courses. So these are courses to go out into like to the manufacturing world and learn literally everything there is to know about manufacturing, from the Japanese standards to American standards and everything in between, of how do you maintain these machines, how do you stay safe with these machines, and how do you not get caught in these machines. I would highly recommend PSEO to any students out there for MNCS. I would highly recommend it. If you have the time, if you have the discipline to get things done, and if you have the desire to finish out everything fast, it is a great way to do it, but it is a lot of work, and you have to be on top of everything. Your professors will not hound you to be on top of everything like some advisors here will. If you miss an assignment, that's on you. It was posted in D2L, and that's up to you to get it done. So here's the question every adult in the room asks. What are you doing after high school, buddy? I plan to continue my education at South Central College in the fall and continue my trend of engine service with the Agribusiness Service Technician and Diesel Technician Aid program. I chose this because originally I thought I was wanting to do welding. For like 3 years, my mind has been set on welding. And then this year, I started working on small engines and I went, I love this way more than welding. How do I do this as like a full time? And I talked to the guys at CNS and they're like, here's the thing. Unless you start your own business, you're not going to make a lot of money off small engines. It's great side income, but it cannot be your main income unless you are employed somewhere or you own your own business with it. And I said, well, how else do I get into this engine service crowd then? And they recommended either going with automotive mechanics or agribusiness. And I said, well, tractors sound fun. And that's kind of how my mind got made up on going and doing agribusiness instead of welding. So thank yous to my parents, especially my mother and father. I know my mom wanted to wash my mouth out with soap a lot of times for the things I said in that garage. Um, Amazing help from my dad too. He's done small engines for a while as well. And without him, I probably would not have known where to start on some of these engines. Thanks to Nick for tolerating a lot of shenanigans in advisory. I caused a lot of chaos when I was there in advisory just for the fun of it, because got to keep Nick on his toes because there's nobody else in the advisory to do that. Um, Thanks to Rich for helping me just figure out how do I even do this? What do I even do for this? I would also like to thank senior team, even though I told you guys no to a lot of your suggestions. I did take some of those and I did spin them a lot. But it was also very nice to have meetings with senior team to figure out what are some next steps if I was stuck. A big thank you goes to Nicole as well. She made a lot of things happen that I did not think were going to happen. She got me back on track after I was way behind, and she physically sat down with me almost every week and taught me the time management skills that I have to this very day. I would also like to thank the techs at CNS. I mean, I literally showed up one day in my bibs and a sweatshirt and I asked, hey, I'm a high school senior. I'm learning about small engines. I do my own small engine maintenance. Can I come back and see what a professional shop is like? And they were very, very glad to have a teenager back there for once. I think they said I was maybe the only third teenager that's ever been back there who's ever asked to come and see. Well, I think my computer just died. Well, any questions? Evelyn? Threading is what locks everything on with nuts and bolts. It's the gaps on that little spiral that goes up the shaft of the bolt. Now, when you screw that up, you have to either use a tap and die set or file it. And because the camshaft needed to be so precise, I decided, well, I can't get a tap and die to catch, so I had to sit there and file. Yep. I definitely would be interested in continuing working on small engines. It would be a lot less intensive than what it has been this year, where I was bringing things home to work on quite a lot. I mean, I worked in the garage hours upon hours upon hours. Almost all of my engine work I did in that garage. I did it when it was -20 out with a heater in the garage and freezing my hands off. And I did it when it was 70 the other day. Um, I've been working in the garage, but I don't think I'd do it as intense, but it would still be great side income to have. Gary? Oh boy. Paula? So a lot of like the spacers for carburetors you probably could 3D print. I personally would not want to because without like some very good expensive filament, it's going to crack, it's going to break, it's not going to hold properly. And filament also melts. And engines do not run cold. I learned that the hard way many times. Yeah, with the wheel, I could probably 3D print individual parts and glue them together. But at the same time, it's easier to go out and figure out how do I size the wheel properly instead of learning to completely design something in a 3D modeling software. I've done that before and I didn't enjoy it. Some people's cup of tea is that, it's not mine. Yep. Yeah. Uh, I don't think I would. In all honesty, I don't think I would. I mean, I loved every step of this project, even though the chainsaw was frustrating. That was still a great learning experience for me of how do you work on a chainsaw? How do you not get cut when taking off blades? How do you sharpen blades? I don't think I'd do anything differently. Evelyn? Um, getting so greasy that my parents literally said, "You look like a grease monkey, and you look like you've had your head in an engine bay for the past 9 hours." That was kind of the biggest compliment ever. Um, I mean, just having the work of your progress on your hands to me was the biggest piece of this. Was I didn't wear work gloves 90% of the time because I couldn't find gloves that fit right or had the same grip that my fingers did. And so I just worked without gloves unless I was working with the oil. But seeing the work of your progress and of your labors on your hands was by far the best thing out of this project.
All right, we'll probably get going here in about 1 minute, so settle back in. And again, this is streaming. If you want to share the link with somebody who couldn't make it tonight, it's on our Facebook page, and it'll give you the link to our YouTube page.
right, everybody. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to one of the finest human beings I know. So there was a movie back in the 90s, and I'll give Jen Brunick complete credit for this one. The movie is called Smoke Signals, and one of the characters' name is Victor, and like the tagline for that for the like it's the thing was, "Hey Victor." So I've been saying that for like 3 years now. It's just so much fun, and I always think that it's not just one name. It's hey Victor. Anyways, worked with Victor for 3 years in the advisory. Uh, Victor is one of the few people that can say they went to kindergarten in the basement of St. Joseph's Church. So one of our original kindergarten students, one of our pioneers. Um, one of my shticks is to use self-deprecating humor all the time, and Victor constantly chastises me for that. That's not true, Jim. So I appreciate that. But what you're really seeing between us is a battle of two very stubborn people who have found a way over these 3 years to work together. And in that time, and we just had a couple conversations this week. I want to, because everything always comes full circle. Um, the first conversation, and not too much of a spoiler for the project, but one of the things Victor learned in this is that he's capable of doing many things. And I was able to say this week, I've known that for a long time. Um, and really smart, actually teaches me a lot of stuff in environmental science. And I've picked up a lot from you. And the last one was just today with when I talking over the presentation. I said, I'm proud of you. Victor said, well, I'm proud of you too, Jim. So we got that going for us. Without further ado, straight out of St. Peter, Minnesota, Victor Kehoe.
Wait, how's the sound? Is it okay? Okay. Um, all right. Hello, everyone. As Jim said, my name is Victor. This is my senior project about environmental artivism. So I'd like to start off with a quote by Farley Mowat. We have doomed the wolf not for what it is, but for what we deliberately and mistakenly perceive it to be, the mythologized epitome of a savage, ruthless killer, which is in reality no more than a reflected image of ourself. Um, to kind of give some explanation to this quote, at least in my eyes, it says to me kind of how humans as a society have liked to shift um, our own misdoings and the problems we cause onto other things, like, for example, wolves. So then that's kind of a common theme is generally a lot of times humans we portray wolves in a uh, less than desirable light when in reality that is just portraying what is to be more so said about humanity sometimes. So what is this project about? Generally it's been about exploring art and using art to express concerns to environmental issues and climate change. And then the other part has been helping the community finish an art project that has been long in the making and really needed to be finished. And then why did I do this project? Well, I knew that I wanted to do something related to environmental studies, but I also wanted to do something related to art because that would be the easiest thing for me to do. for 300 hours. And with environmental issues being a big concern of mine, I wanted to find a way to help reach more people about the issues and have more people understand. And I mean, I just enjoy making things, it's fun. And plus, art is honestly a better way to capture people's attention. And then, what is environmental artivism? So, artivism specifically is a type of activism that is expressed through artwork. Um, it can be in many different art forms, but the one that I am generally talking about today is pretty simple painting, drawing type of art, but it can be in many different art forms. A modern day artist that does artivism that you might know would be Banksy. Uh, they do stuff that is more political and societal type of artivism. But for specifically my project, I've been focusing on environmental artivism, centered around, of course, the environment and issues related to what is happening to the environment. And then to explain what environmental artivism means to me, generally, when you look into environmental artivism, you will see a lot of hopeful and uplifting themes, which is obviously good. Um, and that's great and all. But just for me personally, and this is purely just personal, to me, artivism, environmental artivism, I like to focus more on tones that are more somber and uh, showing that to viewers that these things aren't just things to be taken lightly, to make viewers feel like, oh yeah, this is a sad thing, to share that emotion with others. So, a piece that I want to share that kind of has inspired me is this piece by Jackie Hansen. In the background, you will notice, or well, okay, ignore the background first, actually. So you'll see the sign. It says "Swim at your own risk." My attention is more drawn to the background, where what it looks like to me is a dried up pond that just has blood in it. To me, that kind of says something along the lines of people saw the sign, chose to ignore the sign, and chose to attempt to dive into said pond that no longer exists. And, that's kind of dangerous, as you can see from what I assume would be the aftermath of people doing that. Basically, just people going forward with no regard for what's going on in the environment around them and choosing to do things that are harmful to themselves. And really, just before we get into what I've been working on a lot of different art mediums or trying them out. But first, I just want to say art is subjective. This is true. I know that's a bit shocking, but I also just want to say that I don't actually claim to be an artist. I do this purely for fun. It's, just something that I enjoy doing. But one of the first art mediums I tried out was oil pastels, which was oddly enough more complex than I thought it would be, which sounds really silly. But if you get one thing wrong, mainly being the paper you use, you will get everything wrong. So if you don't use a tough enough paper, you should use watercolor paper, by the way. Anything less it will not work for you. Um, you have to smudge oil pastels. That is generally what you do. The more smudging you do, the more it'll wear away at the paper. And uh, if you want to use masking tape, which is really helpful, see like this one down here, I used masking tape, and I did this one as well. But the paper I used, the masking tape, I did this one first, and then I took the masking tape off, and I don't know if you can see right there, but it tore the paper, and I was like, well, the show must go on, I guess. I'm just going to draw right over that. So it's a part of that bird now. But it was still pretty fun to make the colors fade into each other. And then the thing that I enjoyed doing most, honestly, was watercolor, which, yeah, it's a very simple art form, but there's just something really fun about watercolor. I also learned some really interesting techniques and things about watercolor. Specifically, the thing I learned about that I enjoyed the most was a technique called wet on wet, which is basically where you put a puddle of water onto the canvas or paper or whatever, and then you take your paintbrush, dip it in the color of your choice, get the brush full of the pigment or whatever, and then you dip that into the puddle of water and it dyes the puddle. So on this one over here, I did that a lot. Specifically, my hand's really shaky, sorry, but specifically this part up here, this entire upper section was one giant puddle that I did that with. Um, and I don't know why, but that's really fun to do. It takes a while to dry, but it's very fun, and the outcome looks pretty interesting. So another thing I tried was using Indian ink, which functions very similar to watercolor, except it has what I can only describe as a more interesting flow to it. And the staining quality it has gives it a better depth than watercolor. But along with that, it makes it harder to clean. So while it was fun using it, you know, you can also use the same techniques. I did do the wet and wet technique with the ink as well. While it was fun to use, with the difficulty of cleaning, I opted to not really do it as much. And then I wasn't originally planning on doing ceramics, but I was presented with the opportunity and I was like, okay, sure. So I had never actually used a pottery wheel before. It was my first time, but I went ahead and tried it. And, it's a lot more complicated well, maybe just as complicated as you think it would be. But so the things I made were all very small because turns out it's really hard to make things taller on a pottery wheel. Specifically, this one right here, uh, the picture doesn't do it much justice, but that thing is actually very tiny. Is is very very tiny. That is as tall as I could make it before it fell apart. So, and then I was looking for a way to fit this into my project, keep it relevant. And to me, this first one here, I don't know about you guys, but to me, it kind of looks like a honey pot for some reason. I don't know why. That's just what it says to me. So I painted it a dark green color and I named it Nature's Honey Pot, which, as you might notice, Nature's Honey Pot seems to be empty. Weird. And then the second one, I was just doing random stuff along the rim. And to me, for some reason, it says Jester to me. I don't know why. It just does. So I named it the Fool because that seemed relevant. Yeah. And then the other main bulk of my project and what I did was working with the Hummingbird Center. So first, I knew I wanted to work with a local organization and try doing some art. And I went with the Hummingbird Center. I reached out to Brenda Katosik and we started chatting. And I met up with the Henderson Feathers and we talked and we're like, okay, sure, let's do this. So I was going ahead and thinking, what can I do for them? I was told of a table that didn't have a glass top, and in my mind, I couldn't get out of my mind the idea of a mural or a mosaic. But so I just started making ideas for what I could do with it. That's what those pictures are. But then I learned of a pre-existing mosaic that was not finished and desperately needed to be finished. So I went with my advisor, took a look at them, and decided that I would try to do something with them. We brought them here to the school, and then, you know, the previous plans just for the mosaics weren't physically possible. So I decided to go with something simple and just put it down on a cement board. This way, they could do whatever they really wanted with it, put it on a wall, put it somewhere outside, whatever they wanted. So I did some measuring, and after I had gotten the supplies, and I realized that um, the mosaics were too long for the cement boards. So the hardest part of this project was me trimming down the sides of the mosaics. Specifically, I felt really sad about this one. That's what this here is, this dragonfly. I still have the dragonfly, but it didn't fit on the board, so it had to go. Um, and then after trimming that all off, I basically, as another thing you can see with this first picture is that the mosaics, they are kind of in sections instead of just individually having to place the tiles. They were in sections, which makes it easier. So I put each section individually down on the board one at a time, traced them, and then took them back off. So when I had all the sections traced out onto the board, I put mortar down on the board, one section at a time, and then I would lay the piece of mosaic down onto the mortar. So I didn't have to do it all in one go, which would have been not, that wouldn't have worked out well. So I'm glad I did it this way. And then after that was said and done, the fact that the sides were never straightly cut off to begin with, and the fact that I trimmed them, there were some blank spots. That's what this is here. And basically, I decided to use leftover or extra material and fill it in myself. So that worked out fine. Then, after all that work, I grouted over the top of the mosaic and down the sides, and then cleaned off the top, which I made that process more difficult for myself than it had to be, but I lived, kind of. So after all that, due to some unfortunate complications, I wasn't able to finish the second one. I was able to finish this one. I don't know, maybe you know that. But this other one, I had it mortared down on the board. So all it needed was to be grouted over. Um, but something came up and I wasn't able to do that. So it was so close to being done, but yeah, I didn't get to do that. So after all that, talking about some of the hurdles I faced with this project, one of the really hard things was taking time to learn how to use mortar and grout. It was something I had never done before. Never even closely remotely have I ever done something like that before. So it was fun to learn, but painstakingly took a long time. And then the main thing that really caught me was when I was laying down the sections of the first mosaic. I didn't do it correctly as I should have, and there's just like 3 or 4 edges that stick out like upwards and aren't flush with the rest, and those annoy me to no end. But it did teach me better for the second time, and the second time around, I asked for help to lay them down because that is at least a two-person job. So, and then overall, with my general project, I really actually struggled to find out what I was even going to do with this project in the first place. I got some help from some other adults, and they helped direct me towards this project idea, helped direct me towards the idea of Artivism, which was something I had never heard about before. And then that in itself, asking those adults for help, was a bit challenging. I'm not one who likes to ask for help, but you get over it, you do it. And then just looking back, something that I find went poorly, as I mentioned previously, was the uneven mosaic tiles. But something that did go really well, as Jim mentioned, was learning that I could be capable of more things than I thought I would be, which is surprising. And then the main things I learned about this project were, as I already said, discovering artivism and then learning how to grout, picking up a physical skill that I had never done before. That was a new and interesting experience to have. And then just at the end, I would like to give a special thanks to Jim, Sally, Ashley, Elise, Jake, Brenda, Joe, my mother, Zoe, Hannah, Dylan, Barb, Dana, David, Austin, the senior team, and all of the Jimmians. And then I would also like to thank you all for taking the time to watch this presentation. Any questions? Ooh, that is a good question. I had made a list of things I wanted to try out. I attempted them, and my skills were not enough. Um, I honestly wanted to do stuff related to forest fires more. That was not something I was able to do much of, though. Yeah, yeah. I'd say it's definitely changed how I see art. Jim the other day actually brought up a really good point that the children's book, The Lorax, could be seen as artivism. And I never thought of that. So it really gives you a new perspective on a lot of different art and what it could mean. Wait, yeah? Ooh, that's a great question. Personally, I don't think AI should really be taking the place of making art. That's something fun to do for humans. The AI is meant to do the things that are boring and that you don't want to do, so you can do the things like make art. All right. Oh, yes. Good to know. I just wanted to cover all my bases in case someone was like, "Oh, this isn't good enough." No, you can't be an artist. Yes. Uh, do we explain the drama or no? Yeah, community, controversy, conflict of interest, that sort of thing. Yes. The first thing that came to my head was the time you got pooped on by a bird in New York. That was really funny because I was standing right behind you, and that bird specifically went for you. And later that night, we were supposed to go to Broadway. So, thank you. I hope so. Yeah, yeah.
Hey, folks, we're just going to get started here in a minute to wrap up the night. All right, everybody. For our last thank you all for coming out. Some of you have been here multiple nights. Um, this, I just have to say, the senior presentations. A lot of times in like November and December, I just want to go work at Burger King where I can just be like, fine, have it your way. Um, and then I get to this time of the year and I think back on watching these kids grow up, and it's amazing, and we see what they do. It's so cool. I get the opportunity to introduce Ethan Olsen. Ethan's been at MNCS since second grade. Um, and first off, this I got 1 year to work with Ethan. I inherited him from a great advisor. So really, it's been a dream because so many foundational skills were laid. And found out last year that he was interested in working in a reef tank. My previous career that didn't pan out monetarily was working with reef tanks, and he's going to teach us all about that. So it was like this really cool thing. Like, well, let's see, this kid knows how to do good projects, and he likes saltwater fish, and he's going to make a reef tank. So I've lived vicariously through him this year, without having to spend the money on the reef tank. So that's pretty awesome. And Eric and Sarah, if I show up at your house, please don't kick me out. I'm just there to see the reef tank. Uh, what I've really appreciated about Ethan this year is his calm, cool, and collected nature. Every Thursday we play a game called Mafia in our advisory, and Ethan always seems to win, and he convinces people that he isn't the mafia when he really is the mafia. But he's like, well, why would I do that? Why me? That's why I always, a lot of times, vote for you. Anyways, um, straight out of Mankato, Minnesota, Ethan Olsen.
Nice. Hello? All right. This is my senior project, building a reef tank. Ever since I was maybe 4 or 7 years old, watching the first Blue Planet by David Attenborough, I've been in love with the ocean, just how vast and how many creatures there are in it. More specifically, I love the second episode, the Deep Ocean episode, where they went into the depths of the ocean and explored all the weird creatures. And as a child, I wanted to be in that submarine and go to the bottom of the ocean. In this presentation, I'll start by covering my research paper and what I did for my project, then getting into my community expert and what she's done in the field, then talking about my community component, and then my career and college plans, and then I'll wrap it up at the end. So, my research paper was on the Great Barrier Reef, the greatest and largest of all reefs in the world, being 130 square miles. If you didn't know, it's located in Queensland, Australia. Um, I'll give a brief overview on like what a reef is in case you aren't aware. A reef is built over hundreds and hundreds of years where one small little coral will find a rock protruding in the sand and grow on it. And then eventually that coral is going to die. And then more coral can grow on that dead coral. And eventually you'll have this sprawling ecosystem with many fish and different species. And the Great Barrier Reef was part of the inspiration for my project. So, as I said at the beginning, I made a reef tank for my project. Unfortunately, though I would have loved to have it here on stage with me, it's over 2,000 pounds, so I couldn't exactly bring it. So I have this Lego model here to help represent it. So what is a reef tank? We covered what a reef is, but a reef tank is a basically miniature model reef. You are the architect of the tank, so you can have whatever rock structure you want, whatever corals you want and fish. You can design it however you want. You could have just one species of coral and call it a zoa garden, and that's a very popular design. So my original plan for this project was I was going to have two tanks. I was going to start with a smaller nano tank so I could learn some of the basics for this field, and then I was going to upgrade to a larger tank later on. So I'll start with the nano tank. I assembled the cabinet. I created the rock formation, which you can see in the left picture. I mixed salt water because unlike a freshwater tank, it's reef, so you need salt. But I had a problem with this tank. Part of my problem was with the nitrogen cycle, so I'm going to explain that here. The nitrogen cycle is the process of turning ammonia into nitrates. So something in your tank is producing ammonia. So as you can see, the ammonia is rising in this picture, and then bacteria will start growing that eat ammonia and turn it into nitrites. So nitrites going up, and then bacteria will start eating nitrites and turning into nitrates. So once the ammonia and nitrates have bottomed out, it's safe for your tank because ammonia and nitrates are very toxic chemicals. So if you just put fish in without the tank being stabilized, they're going to die. So the problem I had with the nitrogen cycle is my testing kits. You need testing kits to kind of see where you're at in the nitrogen cycle to see if you're doing it wrong. And obviously, as a colorblind person, I opted to go with a color-based test so I can clearly see where I'm at. I'm being sarcastic. I could not tell where I'm at during this process at all, and it really delayed my process. I later got a HANA digital checker, which gives you a number readout, but this delayed the process. I also, during the course of this project, got a new house. My parents came to me and like, hey, do you want to move? And I'm like, sure. This is kind of bad timing though. So halfway through the year, we decided to move houses. And at the time, since I got delayed by the nitrogen cycle, I didn't have anything in the tank. And we found this house that we really like, but there was no good spot for it because I wanted it on the top floor, but the top floor is all carpets, and saltwater and carpets don't really mix. So we decided to sell the tank ultimately. And this was the low point of my project here. So my new tank, which I'm really happy about, is a Reefer Max 425 G3. It comes in at a complete 115 system volume. At 14 here on this picture is a reef mat roller. It takes out large debris in the filtration system. And at 12, we have a protein skimmer. This takes out harmful chemicals and oils from the tank. And I don't have it in this picture, but at 9, I have an ATO, auto top-off system. This refills the water from evaporation in the tank. And the most important thing that comes with this tank is the lights. So you need really strong LEDs in a reef tank to replicate the sun because of this little algae called zooxanthellae. Zooxanthellae has a symbiotic relationship with corals. It gives them the food and nutrients they need to survive, and it also gives them their color. So if you want to have coral in your tank, you need a strong LED light system. My tank comes with an app. So on the app here, on the left photo, you can see a picture of how I can control the lights, when they're on, what color they are, and other such settings. It also comes with a nighttime mode, which you can see in the middle picture here, which is really cool to me. So assembling the rock formation for this tank, this is the exact same process that I used for my nano tank. So I drew out the dimensions of the tank on a board, and I laid out what I thought I wanted them to look like, and then I glued them together. I also tried to salvage my rock from the first tank because it has some beneficial algae on it that I wanted to try and salvage for the newer one. So, setup day. Since this tank is way heavier than my nano tank, I couldn't really assemble it by myself. So people from New Wave, which is where I bought the tank from, came and helped me set it up. They did most of the work, but I oversaw it to see how everything's set up and how it works. I helped them a little bit, like with internet stuff and helping them set up the app. So we're finally adding life to my tank, getting on with my project only halfway through the year, record pace if you ask me. Um, so every time I add something to my tank, I need to do two things. One, I need to heat acclimate it, which is just putting the bag in the tank water so the heat can even out, so whatever you're adding doesn't get shocked by the sudden change. And I need to drip acclimate it, which is just a pipe with a knot in it, letting 2 to 3 drops in per second, so whatever I'm adding can get used to my tank parameters. The first thing I added was a pair of Oscillarius clownfish. These are your Nemos of the world, nothing fancy about them, your generic clownfish. The reason I wanted clownfish first was they're a very hardy, beginner friendly fish. So if there's something wrong with my nitrogen cycle, they wouldn't die immediately. You want to get them as a pair because a lone clownfish can be very lonely and territorial. There's a problem, a potential problem with buying them as a pair. If they don't like each other, then you have two lonely territorial clownfish. Luckily for me, mine seem to be happy. Um, a fun fact about them is if they do pair, they can change their sex. So whichever is the bigger one will change to a female, and the smaller one will become a male, which I thought was really interesting. The next thing I added was a cleanup crew. I originally had 10 blue leg hermit crabs and 5 trochus snails, and then I later added a larger turbo snail. The reason you need a cleanup crew is because if there's something that spikes your ammonia in the tank, like maybe a fish died, you need them to help kind of mitigate the damage. Like if you don't realize it right away, your tank doesn't just die because of the ammonia spiking. And also, they help keep the tank clean by eating algae. And the whole point of a reef tank is to look at it. So, you should probably keep that clean. Next, I added coral. There are 3 types of coral in the hobby. And I'll start with soft coral. Soft corals don't have a hard exoskeleton, so they're kind of subverting the general coral image in your mind. The reason I started with these is they're way hardier than other corals. They don't care as much about tank parameters. And since they don't have a hard exoskeleton, they can grow way faster than other corals. I got 3 zoanthic corals, a rainbow infusion zoa, a magician zoa, and a Jedi mind trick zoa. I'll be completely honest, the only reason I got a Jedi mind trick zoa is because of the name, which I thought, like, why is it called that? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I also got my favorite, a firework clove polyp. And the reason they're called this is because at night they glow like a firework is going off, which I think is really cool. The next coral in the hobby, a level up from soft corals in difficulty, is LPS corals, or large polyp stony. These corals have a hard exoskeleton, but not all the way. They have these giant, squishy polyps. As you can see in my closest picture to me, each circle is 1 polyp. So that's why they're called large polyp stonies. I have 2 right now. They're both trumpet corals, a purple rain trumpet and a neon green trumpet coral. The next coral in the hobby is SPS corals, or small polyp stonies. These are your reef makers. I don't have any yet because they are really needy when it comes to tank parameters and are really hard to grow. But I wanted to show you them anyway. As you can see on this Montipora closest to me, all those small dots is 1 polyp. So that's why they're called small polyp stonies. So maintaining the tank. I do a weekly 20% water change, during which I mix new salt water for the reef, and I take out about 19 gallons from my tank. I clean the algae off the glass, and I stir up the sand bed a bit so there's not anything trapped in there. And I also had a RODI system installed in my house, a reverse osmosis deionization system, to create the correct parameters for water for my fish because they don't want pure distilled water in the tank. They like some of the minerals and chemicals in water like this. So this just makes that for me, but I still have to mix the salt every time. And I also test for things like pH, magnesium, calcium, and ammonia in the tank to make sure everything's going right. Some of the problems and struggles I had with this tank are mainly the wave makers weren't set up correctly. When I originally had the tank set up, the people just kind of put them in. Maybe they thought I knew what I was doing and I would adjust them to my needs. I didn't. I realized they were positioned really poorly once I got the corals and they were acting kind of funny. So I messed around with those a while. I think they're in a good spot now. I'm still not 100% sure. And my magician Zoa has been really angry at me this entire time. Not all of its polyps are open, which is a bad sign. And as you can see on this front polyp here, its stalk is elongated. So that generally means that it's either irritated by flow problems or it is not getting enough light. So I've moved it up in the tank to see if that helps it. So the next thing I want to add in my ecosystem is a tiger pistol shrimp and a yellow watchman goby pair. The reason you want to get these as a pair is in the wild, they form a symbiotic relationship where the tiger pistol shrimp will love to burrow around, but it has very poor eyesight. So as the name suggests, yellow watchman gobies are the watchmen of the operation. They'll watch for predators and let the pistol shrimp know. And in return, they get to use the burrow and are protected by the pistol shrimp. And I also want an octospawn LPS coral. I think they just look cool. So my community expert was Jen Wanner. She's the owner of New Wave Aquaria, which is where I bought literally everything for my project, the tank, the fish, and corals. She's been doing this for 20 years now, straight out of college, which is a long time. And she recently won an award in Florida for excellence of fish and corals for a store. She's been very helpful to me during this project. She's done multiple video calls with me for problems I've had with the tank and questions I've had about the hobby, which is very kind of her. And she's also given me deals at her store. Like she gave me a coral for free, which is very nice of her. So my community piece was the school fish tank at Koi Pond. The fish tank you can see right behind you here. And the koi pond is in the greenhouse at the school. I do a weekly 20% water change for the fish tank, and I clean the algae and clean the gravel bed. And some of my friends help me with that. And bi-weekly, I refill the koi pond from water evaporation. So in the future, my tank will become more developed. I didn't have the time of this project to let the corals really grow. This is just an example picture of what a fully mature tank could look like. So I'll be attending MSU this fall, and I'll be looking into colleges that offer good marine biology or aquatic biology programs. Marine biology being the study of sea life, and aquatic biology being freshwater. I'm not sure I want to move all the way over to the coast, so I'm looking at more local options like Lake Superior. So during this project, my one big setback was losing out on the nano tank. There was probably a way I could have still kept it around in my new house, but at the time we were trying to move, which is very stressful, and I was under a bit of a time constraint, so we decided to just get rid of it. But what I'm really proud of in this project is rebounding from that, like having nothing done halfway through the year, but I feel like I'm in a really good spot now. Thank you to Jen from New Wave Aquaria for helping me out during this project and giving me deals on corals. Jim, my advisor, for keeping me on track this year. Nicole, my previous advisor, for helping me with my past capstone projects. Jen, my previous advisor, for helping me out in those early years of the school. My friends, Logan, Ryan, and Dakota, for being emotional support for all these years. And my parents, Eric and Sarah, for really everything. Just being my parents, and also more specifically for this project, driving me to New Wave Aquaria, which is 2 hours away every time I wanted to buy something. Questions? Yes. I have not named the clownfish. Yes. I don't have my heart set on any one thing. I love it all. I especially like how they've evolved. That's really interesting to me. Yes. I I don't wear gloves when really doing anything with my tank. I don't really worry about it. So to answer your first question, I learned later after I set up the rockscape here that there are holes in the rocks, and I didn't know what they're for. But when I bought my first coral, they were on these plugs that I realized these go in the holes. It makes so much sense now. So most of them they're just put in the holes that the rock designed, but two of them I have glued to spots that I think would fit them better. I use Reef cement, so it's just water cement. And sorry, what was your second question? So yeah, so the biggest time consumer every week is the water change. That takes like 2 hours to mix the salt, and then 2 hours actually doing the water change itself. And I 5 minutes a day feed the fish. The cost I've put $7,000 into this project. It's a very expensive hobby. Yes. Yeah. Um, I believe I use Aquaforest salt. It's a special salt mix. So it has the correct type of salt, and it also has some nice things like calcium in it and magnesium, so I don't have to worry as much about that. Yes. My dream fish. Um, I don't really have a dream fish. I'm more interested in the coral aspect. But if I had to name a fish, like a purple tang would look really cool. Yes. Yeah, I'm blanking on where it was, but I've gone to an aquarium that was really cool with like giant tanks with sharks in it. Those are awesome. Well, I plan to go to New Wave this weekend. So if they have what I'm looking for, I'll just buy it. Yes, Paul. They love it, I'm sure. I Going into this project, I didn't know quite this much about corals, so I really enjoyed learning about them and the different types. Yes, Jim. I would stick to farmed corals. Wild fragging, which is taking off parts of coral in the wild, is more damaging and messy to the reef, which, like I mentioned in the Great Barrier Reef section, can take a long time to grow. If I could, I'd go bigger, but I don't know how my parents think about that. Yes. Um, well, I could start fragging my own corals, so I start selling the corals I have if I wanted to. That's an option for me. Evelyn. Well, while going to MSU, I'll still be living at my house because it's so close. After that, I'm not really sure. I think it would be fun, yeah. Nick, yeah, you like this video? You like what you see? Maybe I could post daily about the progress. I don't know.